Hello, fellow moviegoers. Welcome back to Movies and Chill with Zach and Dill. Ladies and gentlemen, as we step into the dimly lit realm of the movie theater, we find ourselves at a crossroads of tradition and innovation. The once thriving industry, which captivated audiences for generations, now stands amidst a transformation fueled by technological advancements and shifting viewing habits. While streaming platforms offer convenience and choice, the allure of silver screen remains irreplaceable. Tonight, we delve into the captivating narrative of the movie theater business, exploring its challenges, triumphs, and the enduring magic that continues to draw us together in the pursuit of cinematic enchantment. There it is. Thank you, ChatGPT, for providing the intro for that. I think I'm going to lean heavy on ChatGPT. It sounds smarter than I really am. But this is Zach. You already know that. This fine-looking fellow on your screen. Also, as we don't have a third chair today, is Lord Christopher O'Shaughnessy, author, speaker, visionary, and one half of the podcast, Diesel and Clooney, Unpack the World. So I really appreciate Chris being here. Say hello, Chris. Go ahead.
Well, hello. That was such a good introduction that you gave, and not just. I mean, credit to ChatGPT, but just your voice. I would very much, if I had the cash, I would just fly you around everywhere and have you introduce me constantly, like that. Just with that voice. I mean, it's. The dulcet tones will lull anyone into a listening mood. So thank you for that. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. You can thank Adam West for that voice. I borrowed
Good
it.
old Adam West. What a legend.
He's fantastic. I feel like I kind of slid into Harry Carey there a little bit at one point. But anyway, this episode today is going to be about the state of the theater. So that's kind of what we're talking about. But we're going to roll our beautiful theme song, and then we'll get right into it. Stick around.
Movies and Chill with Zach and Dill. That'll get my giggle box going.
Movies and Chill with Zach and Dill.
Our pets' heads are falling off!
Movies and Chill
Great Scott!
with Zach and Dill.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Movies and
It seems to run on some form of electricity.
Chill.
Well, they're sorry!
Zach and Dill.
Spartans! Prepare for glory!
The great Oz has spoken.
Movies and Chill.
Get to the podcast
Welcome
now.
Hey, we're back. Again, after the theme song, which I know all of you listened to, and you didn't fast forward. I know you listen to the song every time. But now we're back into the episode with Christopher O'Shaughnessy. Do I need to give you a chance to explain the Lord title, or are we just accepting that it's
No,
just Lord?
I say just blind acceptance. I say just go with it. No
Lord
context.
Christopher.
Good with that.
Just
believe it. It's there.
Just believe it. Yeah, just go with it. Just go with it.
Okay. How are you? By the way, Chris, I haven't caught up with you in a while. Are you okay?
I know it has been a bit.
Post Queen era? Like, are you doing okay?
Post Queen era. It's a pretty good way to put it. No, I have to say I was really sad. I knew I would be. I personally a huge admirer of Her Majesty. I think she did an absolutely phenomenal job and was nothing short of a legendary example of putting duty before self for her entire life. And so yeah, I think though even I was struck a bit by how sad I was in all actuality, and I realize sometimes that's a bit hard to translate outside of the United Kingdom or even the Commonwealth realms. But yeah, she just she had been a very stable figure for most everyone's life, and so it's a very odd thing to just suddenly she wasn't there. She just always been there. And she was this lovely symbol of continuity and duty, and I think she took a lot of slack as times changed and everyone was like, oh, I want to see more emotion, blah, blah, blah. but really her job was to be the consistency. Her job was to sort of put emotion aside and rise above it, and she did that marvelously well. So yeah, I think she will be greatly missed. I think she was probably the end of an era. I don't think they make them like that anymore, and I think the United Kingdom, the entire Commonwealth, and probably even the rest of the world is a little bit worse off without her. But I know she wants to soldier on, so we shall. And I wish King Charles all the best. Yeah, I'm hoping he does well. I really am.
And that'll do it for Movies and Chill with Zach and
There we
Bill.
go. Thanks for tuning in. Just a
to listen
little
to Chris
tribute to Her
talk about it.
Majesty. Join us next time when I'll be offering tributes to various other people who I think are amazing.
I knew that would be a rich vein to tap. that you would have a lot to say, and I don't feel like you had enough of a pedestal to really get it off your chest. So.
Oh well, I know. I tried to keep it to myself. You know, in true. I thought Her Majesty would say no, don't get all crazy, but no, she will. She'll be dearly missed. In fact, I recommend if you're a viewer or a listener, because you can be both on your podcast. You're very ahead of the times. You can go look up. She would give a Christmas speech every year, and the great thing about that is that it was the one speech that she could say whatever she wanted. I mean, loads of her other speeches are in coordination with various governments and things like that. But the Christmas speech, she could, if she felt like it, she could just broadcast "Mary Had a Little Lamb" to the entire world. And there are some really good ones. I feel like I was always actually very inspired. That was one of our family traditions, as was in the household many Brits and Canadians and South Africans, and just again the Commonwealth. I don't know if everyone knows this, but the Commonwealth encompasses. I think it's close to between a quarter and a third of the globe. A part of the Commonwealth, which is sort of the former British Empire. It was for many of us that was a tradition to watch the Queen's Christmas address. But she did. I mean, really good. She was unashamed to talk about her faith. She was unashamed to talk about real things. It was quite impressive. So there's a lovely backlog of them. She'd been doing it for a long time. So if you need some inspiration, go back and watch the Queen's Christmas addresses.
I will now.
Please do.
I didn't even realize that she was allowed to go off the cuff. That's fantastic.
She can say whatever she wants. Whatever she wants. Christmas is her time.
Yeah. Doesn't even belong to Santa anymore.
No.
Now she's such a legendary mythological figure. She gets her own.
She kindly shared it with Santa, which was just a symbol of her generosity, I feel.
Well, let's slide right in. I don't want to mix too much business and pleasure, but
right. Sorry.
We have
normal.
I mean, it is normal.
I mean, it's normal for us to take the first half of the whole episode and not talk about what we're going to talk about.
Par for the course, to borrow a Scottish phrase. But
keep everyone in suspense.
Yeah. So, the movie industry at large, as we discussed in the introduction, what is the state, in your opinion? Because you are global. You're a global phenomenon. What's your take in the theater?
Oh goodness. Well, I mean that's sort of broad. I think if we're painting with broad strokes, I think I'm always impressed at the incredible sway and influence of Western media, and it is phenomenally. The word pervasive is often used. I think that often has quite a negative connotation, and I think you can interpret that negatively or positively, but yeah, it is pretty impressively pervasive. Western movies are everywhere. I mean, I've been to about 105 countries to date, either lived in or visited or worked in. Yeah, and during that time, I cannot think of honestly any country where, at least in their capital or major cities, they don't have theaters with American movies playing. And quite a few places will also have their own movie industry. I mean, Bollywood is quite large. various places do have quite a film industry, but it almost always is running alongside the American Hollywood blockbuster kind of thing. So it's very powerful. It has incredible reach, and so I think with that, I mean, you can interpret that in quite a few ways. With that, you could say there's a degree of responsibility to be promoting Western values, because it is, I would say, it is one of the most effective, whether we want it to be or not. It's one of the most effective forms of soft power that you can use politically. I think many other nations would love to have the sway and influence that the American movie industry has across the entire globe. And I think for that reason, to localize this back to the United States, where, in my humble opinion, many things seem to be rather political. That could just be me. I don't know if you've noticed, but politics seem to be leaking into things. But honestly, it does make sense from a global perspective. I can see why politics would be so intrinsically linked to the film industry, because again, it is absolutely an incredible weapon in the soft power arsenal. Hard power is your actual numbers and figures, the size of your military, the power of your currency, the size of your economy. Very qualitative or quantitative rather kind of things. Whereas movie industry is soft power. That's, you can't quite express it, but my goodness, I would say it is just as powerful as having a strong currency or a big military.
I think politics has always been in movies, in media. I mean, go back to Superman punching Hitler in the comics.
Right.
It's always been there. I think that the subtle difference today, and this is all political parties are guilty of this. The mentality now that if you don't think how I do, you are an evil that I'm allowed to dispense with. I think that's a feeling that's new. It used to be we would just shrug and say, yeah, we don't agree on that, but cheers, mate. Like that used to be the mentality, and now it's oh, you think that? Well, I should be allowed to think bad things about you now because you feel that way, and that's the part that's too bad. Again, without trying to get too political, I think that the theater situation is just a perfect storm of circumstance. I think that a lot of studios have become too political, and therefore you can almost cut your profit in half based on, and I'm talking about the country, not the world. The world is an entirely different market. China is a huge market that's split away from everything else. So just talking about the states, if a movie is overtly political one way or the other, and usually it's one way in this country, but if it cuts that way, you'll notice a lot of people will shy away from it. So they're cutting into their market in that way. Another way the market has cut theaters and movies in general is COVID. I think 2019 proved to be, I think, the speeding up of a process that was already happening. And I think that streaming services have done the job of, I'll call it a knife wound. They've inflicted a knife wound into the movie industry, and COVID kind of poured salt into that wound and made it fester much faster. I think that's kind of my take on why theaters have gone downhill, because why watch a movie in the theater that you could see on HBO right now? Your thoughts, Zach? Anything?
Yeah, well, I've noticed that the decline, but I've noticed that it seems like it's getting an increase because for the same reason that people got tired of being at home then. So they're starting to go back to the theater because it seems like lately, especially if it's a good movie and stuff, and people are still going to the theaters. I mean, a lot of your any of your like good Marvel movies, anybody wants to see it in the theater. So they're still, even though you could get it eventually to streaming, they're still trying to go see it in the theater first. So, I mean, I've seen an increase since COVID. COVID had dropped down quite a bit, but now I'm starting. I mean, you see it. A movie comes out and you're like, look at all these people flocking to this movie. You know why, but I mean, I think it's because people are tired of being stuck at home. You know, they did for a long time, and now it's like, because even around, I mean, just go around a neighborhood, it seems like more people are out more than they ever have been. Because there for a while, everybody was afraid to go out and didn't want to. And like you said, you could watch it at home, but then they're like, well, no, the reason we went to the theaters because we wanted to go out and do something, and that was something to do.
I think you're right about that. But I think it's peaks and valleys. Like, I think that the theater was going down for a while, and then COVID really tanked it. Yeah. And then you're right. There was a surge that kind of brought it back. The relief of, I can go to a movie theater and not infect 100 other individuals. That was a good feeling. But then I think that honeymoon phase has gone away, and a lot of people are looking at Oppenheimer and Barbie, and they're going, the theater's back. Yeah. I kind of have a different take. I think that is proof positive that the theater is dying, because how many movies get you that excited anymore? I don't think it's many. I think when you see the numbers of Oppenheimer and Barbie, I think it was foolish for them to release it on the same day. I know Christopher Nolan, the director of Oppenheimer, was upset that it was releasing on the same day. Barbie is a phenomenon, one that I understand but also don't understand. And I'm sure that, Chris, you'd love to tell me your thoughts on Barbie. It's kind of a segue there, but you know, as someone with an international flavor, you know, seeing it from afar, you're not quite in the American culture, like looking at Barbie as, I want to see this because maybe you were surrounded by Barbies growing up. I have no idea, but I can only assume that this is an American phenomenon.
Just real quick, on the Oppenheimer Barbie thing, the only thing I can say about that is, as much as it is like not a good, you know, it wasn't a good thing, I did notice that a lot of people were going to watch both movies. Like, even I've heard of people where they went and watched this movie while their kids watched this movie, or vice versa. And people actually did a deal. Like, I heard a couple couples were like, they made a deal with their wives, like, we watch this and then we watch this.
Yeah, I'm not watching Barbie unless we watch Oppenheimer.
So it was, I don't think it helped it, obviously, but obviously, in a way, it kind of helped it some if, like, say, you couldn't release it any other time. It is a weird combo to see that at a theater, especially like here, like we saw it in town where they only showed 2 movies and those are the 2, and you're like, what a weird combo.
Yeah.
What a weird combo.
Yeah, and just for the record, I think they promoted it backwards. I think Barbie they promoted this as like, oh, look, it's Barbie, it's colorful, it's pink, and look at the smile on Margot Robbie. Like, it's like, okay, good. But then you get there and you get innuendos and you get adult humor, and I think that they kind of undersold that this was an adult film. And maybe you can kind of tell me your thoughts on Barbie, Chris. But I think that there were a lot of kids in the theater, and I was like, I don't think that they should have heard that joke, you know. But what were your thoughts on it? You saw that movie recently.
I did. Yeah. So I did see it, and I think you summed it up really well. I think I both understood it and didn't understand it. And I think you're right. I think I understood that it was a lovely callback to a very familiar thing. I mean, Barbie is just such an iconic thing. I feel like anytime you take on something like that, it's a huge responsibility because it's so iconic. Everyone comes with their own personal attachment to it. And that the people's personal attachment is so wide ranging that you're treading on very dangerous things. Taking on something like that. I was worried with the Mario movie about the same thing, but I loved the Mario movie. I thought that was delightful. Just thrilled to pieces with it. I mean, my inner 10-year-old was just absolutely delighted. So I think I would. It's presumptuous, but it's presumptuous. But my presumptuous guess, is that while I would say the Mario movie sort of answered just what a 10-year-old me would have wanted as someone who played with Mario things growing up. My guess is that, as you said, for all those reasons, there are more adult humor and a load of sort of nuance on some topics that are quite political, some sociological topics. My guess is that the equivalent someone who grew up playing with Barbie and went to say, "Oh, this will slake the excitement of my inner 10-year-old." I don't know that the Barbie movie would have done that the same way the Mario movie did for me. I don't know that someone who the equivalent on the Barbie playing with growing up thing. I don't know that the movie would have done the same thing that someone who grew up playing with Mario, the Mario movie did. So yeah, I think there was definitely there was a lot. I think that was they tried to make it a teachable sort of thing, and when you do that, you're taking a stand. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe in comparison the Mario movie didn't have teachable moments, but I think it wasn't overt. I think the Mario movie probably said, let's do something entertaining that captures the imagination and excitement of all those 10-year-olds that loved this growing up, and that was the main focus. And maybe there was some lessons about about determination, about what it is to actually be brave, all sorts of things like that. It was in there, but I'd say that was sort of folded in subtly. Whereas I think the Barbie movie, not very subtle, to be honest. It's like so. I think it was a very different sort of, and maybe very unfair to be comparing Mario movie and Barbie. Just that is my only stand of comparison, so I'm going with it.
That's a good one.
I want. I can tell when you're trying to be like diplomatic about what you're saying, and I appreciate it so much. Having the God-given gift, or maybe curse, to just say what's on my mind, I'm going to tell you what I thought about that movie. You hit it on the head with Mario. Mario, another cultural icon, another cultural figure in our imagination. And it was done well. It was critically acclaimed by the world, which is not something said by a lot of movies. It made over $1 billion. Just fantastic. And I'll be honest, the plot was vanilla. The movie plot was not very deep. It was not thought-provoking. It was exactly what you thought you were going to get in the movie theater. Mario saving the princess, saving Luigi. So, like, it was... they threw the wrinkle in of the princess is she's a tough girl in her own right, and that might be the new direction that they're going with the princess. Fine, times change. I have no problem with that at all. I thought it was very well done. The difference between that movie and the Barbie movie is that the Barbie movie masqueraded as a feel-good, nostalgic movie, and instead tried to be a social commentary on men. And it had those moments that you were there for, such as the moment where her foot all of a sudden becomes a flat, normal foot. And it's funny. It's a cheeky moment in the movie, and I think probably one of the only cheeky moments in the movie, the only truly funny moment when they're freaking out about her foot flattening out. Like, that was funny to me. But they got so lost in the tone of, what do we want to say? What would Barbie want to say? And the reason why, this is my thought on from one movie to another, how they do. First weekend for Mario blew the place out of the water, as did Barbie. The numbers are in, they're fantastic. The drop from week 1 to week 2, Mario kept trucking along. Barbie took a nosedive. And it's because the word of mouth got out. And people saw Barbie the first weekend, and they were like, yeah, it was Barbie. And then it was also feminism. And they like really put a lot of people off. And let me tell you this right out front. I have no problem with a feminist movie. Go make a movie that's about feminism. That's fantastic. You know, we should have differing ideas in the world, and that's a fantastic thing. So I'm not a hater on feminist movies. I've seen lots of them. I have my opinions on some and others, and that's fine. My knock on the Barbie movie is that's not what you're there to see. That's not what you paid the ticket for. That's not what the trailer sold. So you kind of got conned into going to see that, whereas Mario didn't have to do any conning. He jumped on the flagpole The only extras we got, I think it was kind of nice to see Jack Black be Jack Black all of a sudden. Like midway through the movie, he's no longer Bowser. It's just clearly it's Jack Black singing the song.
And just to interject right there because I agree, and it's something I've said for a long time. I'm infinitely jealous of Jack Black because, and I mean no disrespect to him as an actor, I just think he's both a phenomenal and terrible actor because he doesn't actually act. It's just Jack Black in different situations, which you could get really angry at and be like, well, he's not even acting. But at the same time, you just have to admire, be like, well done on having such an amazing personality that we just want you in loads of things. Like, I don't think anyone really complains that he doesn't act because we're like, oh, it is interesting to see what Jack Black would do if he were the leader of the Coopers. Like, that's how interesting.
Jack Black were Bowser.
Yeah.
If Jack Black were Bowser, what an interesting thought. Or if Jack Black were, and you can just whatever movies he's in, you're like, oh, he's a music teacher. Yeah, that makes sense that he would do that. And it's just this fun little, sociological experiment to see what would Jack Black do, and then you get to watch it. So I'm just infinitely jealous. Like, well done having such a good personality that no one even wants you to act. We're just like, just be you, but pretend you got a shell on your back. All right. And he's like, okay.
That's actually a really
well
good
done
point.
him.
A really good point. I didn't think about that. It's like he's one of those people like there's so many actors that are always just being themselves. It's never, and he's about the other one where I don't ever really look at it and dislike it.
Right, like Ryan Reynolds is always Ryan Reynolds.
Who else? Like Will Smith does that a lot.
I think Will Smith is a little.
He has range, but a lot of his movies he's the same. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is like that too.
Keanu Reeves is the one I was thinking of.
Yeah,
like,
but like Jack Black is the only one where I never, even though it's clearly that your thought process, you don't think about it because it's just. You actually want to kind of see what happens.
Right.
Where like everybody else, it might be like, I mean, this is a good movie, but he's literally same guys in this one.
Right. And movies have that, like where they're like, oh, it's Ryan Reynolds. I don't believe he's Green Lantern. He doesn't really act like he's Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. But then they find a niche for him. Oh, he's Deadpool. Oh, yeah. He absolutely is Deadpool. That's a perfect match. You know, even in the comic, they before he even got cast as that, they said that Ryan Reynolds would be a good Deadpool in the Deadpool comic, which is so hilarious. But then you've got guys like Keanu Reeves, like the same thing. He did Speed, and he did these movies where he didn't have to do a lot of acting. He was just like this rigid, cop figure. But then he does The Matrix, and he's like, "That's exactly who we want." It's like we want that guy to be the one.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. They cast him well.
Yeah, it was great casting. And then he tries to go and do another movie, and you're like, John Wick's the same thing. It's like you're just being Neo, only angrier.
Yeah, exactly. Which works for the movie because I like the movies, but like you said, it's just like one of those things where it's like, he didn't have to try hard.
Right. John Wick is Neo. If Trinity died.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, John Wick is like, if he loses Trinity in the first, like the credits are still rolling and everything, like the very beginning.
Well, I think that's a lot of it.
They lose Trinity right in the beginning. Then you get John Wick in the Matrix.
And then somebody kills his dog, so
No, it doesn't even have to be a dog. It's worse. It's his actual, like...
It's worse.
Like, you get the analogy. Like, John Wick is not about the dog. It's about... The dog was a gift from his wife.
Yeah.
And so it's like he lost his wife all over again. And people get that confused. It's not like, oh, he loves dogs so much. Like, PETA had a field day. PETA was like, oh, finally someone who gets it. It's not necessarily that, PETA. Calm down. But anyway.
They probably hate the last one then.
Right, because he... Yeah.
Well, no, there's still a dog in it.
There's a dog in it.
They always keep... There's dogs throughout the movie, so we're
John
good.
Wick. I'm taking a look.
It's fine. This is fine.
We kind of got on a great tangent there because I'm glad we talked about a few movies.
Sorry about that.
That is interesting to hear about the Barbie movie because I'll never watch it. So that's kind of an interesting comparison. That but I was like, that's my thought process when I kept hearing like all these people are going to watch the Barbie movie. I'm like, I just don't. I haven't seen it, but I just don't feel like it's going to be what you think it's going to be. Like it's not going to be like. They made Barbie cartoons, so if you watch those, you're not going to see that in like real life. It's gonna be like, what if Barbie, like that persona came into real life? Like it's not gonna be what you think it is. Right. It's not gonna be in Barbie world. Because that's what I thought right away, but I never, like I said, not seeing it, but to me it was just like, I wonder, my whole thought was, I wanted to know what everybody expected versus what they watched. So like it would have been nice to talk to people. It's like, hey, what do you think you're going to go see here? And then just see how much different when they come back out and go, yeah, that wasn't that. No, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Right, and unfortunately, they were so focused on Barbie's commentary that they forgot to have the plot make sense. Like at one point, like the whole idea is to get Barbie back to Barbie World, and the executives, I think like Will Ferrell was like the executive, and the whole idea was, hey, we have to get Barbie back, or else, bleh. Like they didn't say what happened. They were just like, or else. So it was really shoddy writing in that regard. Like there was no stakes to be had at any point. Will Ferrell just kind of says like, yeah, if we don't get Barbie in there, something. And then once Barbie's there, roll the credits. She's back on her own accord. She's like, I'm gonna go back to Barbie World. Don't worry about it.
Credits.
And then for some reason the executives are still like, yeah, but we need to get her anyway, and like it made no sense at all. Like, what are you trying to do with the plot of this movie? And then Ken has a revolt where he takes, I don't know, I'm not going to go through the whole plot. It was just messy. And again, that has nothing to do with the social commentary. I think the social commentary is what it is. I think a combination of it being the bulk of the movie is the message instead of the bulk of the movie being the merchandise. I think they lost a real opportunity there, and the plot made no sense. So as a movie, I thought it was bleh, but I want it to be for the right reasons. Like I thought I'll go check it out, but my wife was like, no, you're not. You're not going to see that movie because I don't want to sit there in the theater while you click your tongue and huff and make comments and get us kicked out. And I then I'll let it go.
And, like, well, in that case,
you know, so I think I dodged a bullet there. But taking a look at like the theater, because the whole idea is Oppenheimer and Barbie seem to have kind of resurged the theater a little bit. But I've lost the luster of, and DC really did this to me. I haven't seen a DC movie in the theater since Aquaman.
Flash.
Did we see Flash?
Yeah, we saw Flash.
I take that back. Yeah. I did go see
Before
Flash.
That, it was Aquaman.
So before that, it was all the way back to Aquaman. Flash got me excited because of Michael Keaton's return to the Cape and Cow. But I just felt like DC lost the thread.
Well, you know what was weird about that, though? Remember when we sat and watched Flash? There's maybe 3 previews? They didn't really show us anything.
Right.
It was real weird. You're used to seeing like 10, big screen, this is what's coming out. We saw like 3 that you already knew about.
Well, Blue Beetle was one of them.
Yeah, it was just like, it was very, very weird. It was almost like we were at they just didn't have anything to show. So that's like, here, watch Flash.
Right. But anyway, all that to say, I'm going to land the plane on that point. Like, I've lost the luster of going to the theater unless it's something visually stunning. Now, I was tempted to go see Avatar 2. I didn't. The only reason I would have gone to the theater is to see, like, the magnificent IMAX experience of Avatar. Mm-hmm. But what got in the way for me is that Avatar has a very rigid, already told story. And I can't get past the fact that what I was hearing about Avatar 2 is that they just copied and pasted the plot. So essentially, and you knew I was going to say this, essentially it's Pocahontas 3 now. Like, because Pocahontas came out and then Avatar 1 is Pocahontas 2, except that the people are not Indian, Native American, they're blue and from a different planet. But that's essentially the same story. And
I don't think I've ever heard that theory before, but that's such an interesting quote. Avatar 2 is Pocahontas 3. Interesting take.
Yeah, I think there actually already was a Pocahontas 2, so now we're getting into like in-universe questions.
The technicalities, yeah.
Yeah, so many technicalities. But I think people are not going to the theater unless it's something they really want to see. Oppenheimer was one of those examples. I think everybody wanted to see what an atom bomb looked like. And so they went to the theater for that. Which, by the way, I already did like a short on this, but I won't beat it to death. Props to Christopher Nolan for giving us 3 hours of a physicist's life and one explosion. Like,
Quite impressive.
that's impressive in a nutshell. I
Yeah.
cannot believe that movie did as well as it did. But he wove a story about a man, and it was a fascinating story, and he's such a good storyteller. But if you'd have told me like somebody else was going to direct a movie about the guy who invented the atom bomb, I don't know that I'm going to see it.
Yeah.
But
I haven't seen it yet, but everybody's reaction to that movie, whether they wanted to go see it or not, everybody liked it.
It's incredible.
And they were, and again, like you said, 3 hours. That was the thing that I kept hearing. It's like, for how long it was, I was interested the whole time.
Yeah.
Like that was what even people Matt went and saw it with his wife, and she liked it. She's paid it like the whole time. She said it was a little long for her, but she, you know what I mean.
If we got Sarah's approval,
yeah, there
that's
we go.
okay.
So
right,
like that's what I said, and I heard it from other people too to see it. It's like even for how long it was and stuff, they were interested the whole movie.
Okay, let's look at some numbers, I guess. The numbers. How do you know that a movie is a bomb? You know, you hear like bombs in the theater, like, oh, it's a horrible film. It flopped. That's another expression. But I think the metric is whatever you spent on a movie, the production cost. Let's say a movie cost $100 million to make, and it makes 200. You want to like cover the cost and like double it, because you got to consider like all the different factors. I think a company makes, like, they break even if you've made 2.5 times what you spent. I think that's almost like the official metric of a flop. Did we lose Chris?
Uh-oh.
He's been making that face for a long time.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead and kill it.
Oh, nope, you lost him.
Yeah, that's right.
I just noticed that once, and then I looked up again and realized it. Okay.
All right, he's back.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're all right.
Apparently,
Okay.
we've upset the internet.
Okay.
We'll have to go back and see where we left off. But
Oh, my goodness, I'm
you
so
just
sorry.
got to the end of your point about, the...
he'd been gone for a few.
Yeah, has he?
So, yeah. What was the last thing you heard me say, Chris?
No, well, I could hear you. It just, my screen was like, oh, you're not connected. I was like, but I can hear them.
Yeah.
And the last thing you said was that, the sign of success is if you make 2.5 times what you spent. That was about the last thing I heard.
Are we back to recording?
I didn't turn it off.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're just kept going?
Yeah, well,
okay.
here, I'll look real quick. Just,
That's fine. Just make sure we're still
but
recording.
it should... Yep, it's still
All
recording.
right, we're good. Okay.
Yeah, okay. No, I figured he'd jump back on, so I figured let it go, because I can cut it out.
That's fine.
Actually, no, just leave it at that face he was making.
He was making a spectacular face. He was contorted for a bit there. But, yeah, I was making the comment about, 2.5 times. And I'll give you some examples. Like Black Adam's a very recent example of The Rock's take on a superhero movie. The movie cost $192 million to make, which is just boggles the mind. And it made 393. So it didn't quite live up to that 2.5 times, and so it's called a flop. Like, it's essentially a flop.
Which is wild, because could you imagine, because I can't do the math quickly, but that's an insane amount of millions.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really funny for something to profit millions and millions and millions, and it's like, flop.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
The breakdown of like a movie, if it costs $192 million to make, that movie includes actor contracts and studio rentals and props and like the whole cast and crew that puts it together. What it doesn't include is the PR, the marketing.
Okay.
That's where you get the half. So like if it, let me just say, like, if Black Adam pays its workers and its cast, it has to make at least what it cost back. So, for example, it has to make $192 million just to pay everybody for the movie.
Gotcha.
Where you get into the double is what's called a rental. Like, the rights to show the movie are the movie has to pay people, like, okay, you can show this movie, and here you can show this movie. You can have the rights to show this movie 10 years from now. That kind of thing, like the legal side of it, costs millions of dollars for whatever reason. I don't know the logistics to that or the reasoning for that, but it is what it is.
But there it is.
And where you get, instead of just being 2 times, it's 2.5 times, because that half is factored in with publicity. You know, the marketing, the trailers, everything you see, all the posters, all the action figures, all that stuff goes into marketing. So essentially it's a flop because it had to pay all that stuff, and it didn't make enough to pay all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's the whole thing, and that's really funny because it seems like lately there's been a lot of like technical flops, even though it seems like everybody's going to watch it, but they're obviously not making it back.
There's some flops that are worse than others, but my question about the flops will be like, what was the reason that it flopped? Now, I think that we were just talking about Barbie. Now, that movie didn't flop. That movie is a worldwide phenomenon. But there are movies that flop because of their messaging. Like, it is what it is. There's people that don't resonate to that message for whatever reason. There's also, like, I think fatigue. For example, there's definitely fatigue. Black Adam, I think, was not a terrible movie. But because the 3 movies that came out before it also flopped, it was fatigue. Like, people are like, well, I'm not going to go. Like, Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey was absolutely horrendous. I'm not going to go see Black Adam. You know, James Gunn's take on the Suicide Squad came before Black Adam, and it wasn't terrible. I don't think the movie itself was bad, but it didn't make enough to not be called a flop. It flopped hard. They spent $175 million to make that movie. It only made $168. So it didn't even make enough money to cover the cast, let alone the rental cost, let alone the marketing cost. So I got on your side here. I'm sorry about that.
You're fine.
You know, this is your side.
You're really,
I want to
you're
respect your side.
You're getting into this, so
But,
you gotta give you space.
There's movies that are like that are just flops from the beginning, like Space Jam 2 with LeBron James. I know that LeBron is everybody's favorite, almost Michael Jordan, but he flopped in that movie. It cost $150 million to make, and it only made $163. So, like, it's not they're not making a Space Jam 3 anytime soon. I promise you. Mortal Kombat, like this is when I get into movies that I don't think it was COVID necessarily. I think that the studios kind of frantically tried to decide what to do with these movies in 2020, 2021, and even part of 2022. They're trying to decide, what do we do with these movies? We can't have them be in the theaters that aren't open. So what do we do?
Right.
They released them straight to the platform, straight to streaming. And so the metric they use to, like, say how much money they made on these movies, it's kind of vague. But, like, for example, Black Widow came out on Disney Plus and in the theaters at the same time. So what's the metric? It cost $200 million to make, and it made $379 million. So it was almost made twice as much as it cost. It's almost a success. But did the fact that it came out on Disney Plus, did that kill it? I'm not sure. Like that's the part where I think we need to do some more science. There needs to be beakers involved, and I'm not sure, like,
people in lab coats.
Yeah, something, some goggles, maybe safety equipment.
Naturally.
There's a lot of movies on my list that I have here. Just some blockbuster movies that I think are like examples of what we do. You know. So, like another example of the straight to the platform model, Dune, straight to HBO, and it was in the theater, but but I didn't go see it in the theater, which would have been a visually stunning movie to go see, but I chose not to because it was on HBO. Did they lose their tail because of that decision? I think they did. That's me personally. Matrix 4, same thing, went right to HBO. The glorious return of Neo, and he tanked. That movie tanked hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies on there.
Did that even go in the theater?
It did.
Did it really?
But it
I
had a
didn't even
short
know.
run.
Yeah, I didn't even know it.
And every movie that I have on this list either went straight to the platform or only took a month and then went to the platform. So these movies are not just,
Yeah.
you know, the traditional. Remember when we had to wait 6 months for a movie to come out on DVD? And then we would go out and buy the DVD? Like, those days are gone. They're not coming back. The Blu-rays are coming out like a month after. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it does seem to have sped up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think so. When I hear all of this, with the comparison that I can't help but make in my head, and I think, and to qualify what I'm about to say, I think there are loads of different types of moviegoers. I think there are some people who go to movies because they're really big into movies. Some people go to movies because they want to be entertained, and you know they're not diehard. You know, they're just like, well, that was fun, all right. But I think in general, I think of sort of Starbucks in a way when it comes to, you know, the theater versus streaming and things like that, because my wife used to work for Starbucks, and Starbucks is famous for saying, you know, everyone thinks we're a coffee company, but actually what we're promoting is an experience, and that may sound like you're just sort of marketing gibberish, but actually sociologically there's a lot there, because the reality is, you know, if you're just in it for coffee, you can do that at home by yourself for much cheaper. Like you can even get Starbucks coffee at home much cheaper. And yet, Starbucks, you know, walk-in brick and mortar store experience, they're everywhere. Again, having been to 105 countries, you'd be amazed at just how pervasive Starbucks is. They're everywhere. I'm originally from the UK, and even in my tea-loving kingdom, there are Starbucks absolutely everywhere.
How much of that is the brand? How much of that is like, I just want to have the cup in my hand so people see that I'm drinking Starbucks?
I think that might be part of it, but I think even that is relevant.
Like, I'm going to buy a Lincoln, and when this car has the same parts and is $30,000 cheaper.
Yeah, I do. I think that's some of it, but some of it genuinely is the experience. And as an example, I think whenever I go to a Starbucks, I'm always amazed at the amount of people who sit and work in a Starbucks, because they're paying for that premium. I mean, I'm sure you probably could get away with just sitting in a Starbucks, not buying anything and using your laptop, but I think very few people do that. Everyone at least buys a coffee. So you could probably work at home. Some people may be there because they don't have space, but I would say a significant chunk is there because there's a funny thing in humanity where we really do want to be around people. We are herd animals, for lack of a better way of putting it. I don't think that qualifies it near as nuanced as it is, but there you go. But we also really want control. We're this funny duo of that. We love the idea of being in a crowd, but we also want to control our space. And so working at Starbucks, I see that. I see a load of people who are all on their individual laptops. They're not talking to each other. They're all headphones in. They're doing their thing. But they get to do it in the presence of a bunch of other people. So they're scratching that herd itch. They're like, look, I'm around people, but I don't have to interact with them. And I like that. And there's something about, you know, Starbucks has marketed to that experience. And I think in some ways, to me, the theater experience is quite similar. I think the marketing there is come for this experience. And I mean, I guess I feel some of that. Like there are things where I'm like, yeah, I can watch that at home. And that's what streaming has done. Streaming it's like those, what are the K-cups? Streaming is like K-cups. So now you really can have quite fancy coffee at home, even if you don't know what you're doing. And that's
my wife is a barista now.
Okay, there we go.
And she has had no formal training, but she is absolutely a fine barista.
It's the magic. It's the magic, and that's what streaming has done. We all have access to all of this, and I think in some ways, you know, perhaps this is where, you know, the theater experience has to evolve a bit, because they do have a draw. I mean, going to see the Mario movie, I don't regret seeing it in a theater at all. Not just because I was excited to see the movie, but it's just the community aspect. Like just seeing all these kids dressed up as in Mario and Luigi suits, and people riding, inflatable Yoshi and all of that. And just there's something about it's that Starbucks thing. Like, oh, I get to be around people and do a shared thing, but I don't even have to interact with them. Movies are perfect for that. You get all the thrill of, look, we're all together, but I don't actually even need to deal with you. That's the magic of movies, and we'll pay for that premium, but I think it has to be marketed to us. And again, Starbucks has done a phenomenal job of it, to the point where what you said makes sense. Where we really do, we like walking around with a Starbucks cup because we want to associate with that experience, with that look. I go and drink coffee in places with other people who work. I'm cool. And I think there's sort of that the movie theaters, if they haven't already, and I'm sure they have marketing people far more clever than I, so I'm sure they're already onto this. But that's just it. You're not going to stop streaming. So any more than you can stop people having K-cups. Yet somehow they know that we humans will still spend a bit of a premium just to be around other humans. And if you throw in that magical benefit of be around them, but you don't even have to deal with them, we love that. I mean, and that's a whole other discussion on how healthy that is, or not.
We're getting a social media discussion.
Yeah, I was going to say we're getting into deep sociology there. But
at the risk of, I know you have you've got to get going here pretty soon, but.
But anyway, all that to say, it is. I think the theater experience is fascinating because they used to be the gatekeepers. We had to go to them, and I think that's reflected even in their.
Yeah.
Even when I still go, I'm still like, you want how much money for popcorn? You want what?
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
do.
Well,
They're like mortgage and organ.
Level,
Like
the comfort level's up now. Like
comfort level's up. That's true. They've got lovely reclining seats.
You go, you don't watch the movie at home in your recliner. We've got one too.
Yeah,
the screen's way bigger.
Yeah,
but the problem is
they do have
like
that
my
going.
Dad will go and they'll sit in that recliner, and then 2 hours later you have to wake him up. And we just paid a $10 nap is what we did. It's $10 to take a nap. So my dad doesn't go to the theater anymore. But I think the comfort level is one thing they've done. And it reminds me of bowling. Like bowling started to tank really hard. I don't know your experience with bowling, but like basically bowling alleys are going away all over.
Which is a shame. I love bowling.
Yeah,
love it.
And bowling is fun. So what they've tried to do, they tried to do different things. They threw some fancy neon lights up and call it cosmic bowling, and they let people turn on whatever god awful Taylor Swift song they feel like turning on that night. and it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's kind of a niche fun now. Now, if you go to a bowling alley, it's not just a bowling alley. It's also an arcade. And there's a party room over here where you can get pizza, and then there's we even got laser tag in the back. They've got experience now. They have to just bundle all this up because we are such instant gratification people anymore.
Yeah.
And I wonder where that's going.
Well, and I think you mentioned experience, and I do think there's a few things at play here. The quality of movies, which you know way more about than I do. The difficulty is that you can get the quality. I mean, goodness, the quality of some of the series that just get released straight on streaming platforms is unimaginable now. I mean, it used to be that you could tell the difference between a TV series and a movie as far as quality. Now that line has blurred, so that's no longer a distinguishing characteristic. But I think in experience with the theater, and I think, and maybe this is something that still is a bit stronger overseas. I'm stealing this insight from a very clever man, Rory Sutherland, very clever man, works for Ogilvy Advertising, and in a TED Talk he talks about how our perception is leaky, and it's so very true. He makes the point that you could go and have a Michelin-starred meal, but if you had it in a sewer, you're not going to remember that experience well, because even if the food is just off the charts, Michelin-starred amazing, you're still smelling sewage and the surroundings aren't nice, and so perception is very, very leaky. And this works, I see it all the time in aircraft. The perception of first class is really their biggest marketing point. Because if you think about it, you're basically getting a microwave meal in a chair, probably, even in first class, less comfy than what you have at home, and you get to watch TV on a screen probably smaller than what you have at home. Like, first class is actually nowhere near as luxurious as your own living room.
Yeah.
But the experience, what's leaky about it is that you get to go to an exclusive part of the plane and you get to watch all the peasants walk by and go and just feel better than.
This is where your experience shines, Chris. This is where your knowledge of the world is. I unpack the world with you regularly, so that's
which I thoroughly enjoy. But there's that, using that the power of leaky perception, I think, is very powerful. Again, it's how first class works, because, like I said, no first class is actually nicer than your living room generally, and yet we're like, woo, and we'll pay for it. And I think theaters are going to have to market that as well, because the medium itself is now very difficult to be. That used to be it, that and you still get on a much bigger screen, but with the quality of screens you can have at home and things. So now it's I think they're going to have to capitalize on the leakiness of the experience. That if you can have a similar experience watching a piece of media at home or in a theater, it's going to have to be the leaky surroundings that up that for you. It's going to have to be the this is just an exceptionally nice, and it's not even just a hard product. Again, to use airline language, it's not just the seats are nicer. I think it's going to have to be. You're going to have to feel super welcome. It's going to have to feel like you've gone somewhere. We're going to have to go back in time, to the Daddy Warbucks. I remember that scene in Ant where they go to the movies and it's this super fancy, people dressed up, the ushers that usher you in. We might need that again. It might take a leaky perception of that to really sort of revitalize the theater. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying we have a long running history to know that leaky perception is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And it may be, because again, the medium itself is now comparable in other ways, and theaters have lost the function as being a gatekeeper. But I do think in other countries there is still a bit of that. I think in other countries, movie theaters still have some, not universal, and it varies a ton. But in quite a lot of places, it's still a very special, like, oh, we're going to the movies kind of thing. And then I know in the UK they have some really old theaters that you go to for the experience of, this is an old historic building, and and so and they have special whatever. In living in the Middle East, sometimes I'll be honest, I'd go to the movie theater just for the air conditioning. Sometimes in the middle of the Middle East, in the desert, I was just like, I don't even care what's showing. I just want to be in a very dark place with air conditioning because it's boiling outside. Please I don't care what's showing. I don't even care if it's in English. Just let me into a dark room with air conditioning, please.
Your delicate skin situation has been.
I know, you can tell. You can tell. I need that.
I sympathize when you go to Dubai and places where the sun is
you need a lot of air. You need a lot of air conditioning. But there we go. I think leaky perception is the way to go.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Chris, I have so much more I want to talk about, and I'm sad that this has to end. But
we'll just have to do a sequel, because I love chatting with you. I would gladly come back for a sequel.
Well, good, because we have in the studio, we have seat 3 and seat 4 that we pan out when we have a full crew. Which today you got the one-on-one treatment with Zach and Dill.
I know, and I do. I feel very privileged.
Yeah,
immensely privileged.
But we appreciate you taking your time away from your busy schedule. We know that you're a busy man, but
my very sincere pleasure.
And have you talk about things. Maybe when Barbie 2 comes out, you can come back on and tell us what you think. But yeah.
Oh dear.
As always, my friend, I appreciate you very much, and I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for doing what you do, and thanks for having me.
So, all right, well, that's going to do it for this episode.
I look forward to joining you again soon.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Chris is, it's probably a good time we're going because his internet's leaving us again. But, for Zach and myself, man, that's an awesome episode, and I hope you get a chance to see it online on YouTube and on Spotify. I want to plug my friend Chris as well. Diesel and Clooney, Unpack the World. Make sure you pay attention to his podcast.
It'll be up here.
Yeah, we're going to put it right up here.
I'll put it right
there
up here.
There it is. It's right there. TDK. I'm learning so much just about it. Just the third world situation that you guys talk about. It's fascinating. I don't know much about it, but you're teaching me a lot. So kind of spreading the love on our podcast here. But all right, well that's it. You got any thoughts before we go?
No, actually, that was very well done. I'm glad you had.
Thank you. I'm good.
Your guys' opinion on it was really good. So I hope people listen and get an idea because it's really, really good thought process. Especially with just what you think is good and bad about how the theaters are. So
see, Zach's just another fan.
Yeah, right now.
Fan.
You guys have way more information than I did.
Zach actually won a contest to be able to just sit here and listen. No, I'm just kidding. We value Zach's opinion as well. But we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.